not just a supplier to Snap, but they also see them as a competitor.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Facebook is really like kind of looking in their rearview mirror and kind of rightfully terrified of Snap. And because Snap's really hit this millennial mindset, I think there are people at Google I've talked to that they've thought about this paranoia of what if these millennials don't use email at all, and sort of like there's always this fear that they'll drop their products. And Snap has been developing kind of quietly some search services, and certainly does the thing that there are a lot of their search and activities inside the app. Which is not inside the mobile web where Google makes a bulk of its advertising money.
So fascinating. It's not just perhaps YouTube or Gmail that's under threat for Google, but also a hardware element. We've got to remember we had Google glasses, and look at spectacles.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, spectacles come out. It's sort of, you could argue it's been more effective than Google Glass. It's certainly it's been much more of like a fun product, whereas Glass was a lot more serious. And from what I understand, Snap has a lot of ambitions in this world of wearable computing and augmented reality. They're talking about kind of being the software layer for augmented reality, and that's something that Google's invested a lot of money and resources into.
Interesting. So there's the AR front as well. I think what's also fascinating is the limitations that using Google's cloud computing service could put on the regional diversity of Snap. Can you talk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of companies are doing kind of diversifying their portfolio. They're putting money with Google, a lot with Amazon, Microsoft. We're not sure at this point. Snap seems to be putting a lot of their money in Google. They were one of the earliest, one of the earliest customers. They're kind of locked in, but there is a potential that they could maybe go over to Amazon. They could develop their own. They've hired a lot of people from Google and AWS that have experience with that. They mentioned China and their S1 is a market they might be considering going into, or as a potential kind of regulatory risk. Google right now can't operate or doesn't operate its cloud services in China, so that's one area that they might say turn to Amazon for that.
But it's worth remembering, this isn't always that surprising. I remember we always used to have to mention, by the way, before Microsoft really developed its own cloud, it used to use, to a certain extent, Amazon Web Services. Mm-hmm. So there is a lot of frenemies within, remember Apple and Samsung relationship.
Right, and I think, and Google also through what's called Capital G, which is their private equity arm, they recently disclosed that they're also investing in Snap.
Oh, wow.
And it's a bit like Uber. Google is Alphabet's one of the biggest investors in Uber, and yet they're also competitors, right? They're both building self-driving cars, they're both doing mapping services. So it's sort of just comes to the territory in Silicon Valley. I doubt that Google is sitting around the boardroom now saying, like, what are we going to do about Snap?
Yeah.
I don't think they're terrified of it. It's not like Facebook, Amazon, Apple, like these larger existential threats. But it's certainly like an up-and-coming company that they want to keep watching closely.